On June 28, 1914, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, the heir to the throne of Austria-Hungary, visited the city of Sarajevo. At that time, Bosnia was under Austro-Hungarian control. But many local people wanted independence and unity with Serbia. A secret nationalist group called the Black Hand planned the assassination. One of its members, Gavrilo Princip, carried out the attack. Earlier that day, another conspirator threw a bomb at the Archduke's car, but it failed. Later, by chance, the Archduke's driver took a wrong turn and stopped near Princip. Seizing the opportunity, Princip shot Franz Ferdinand and his wife, Sophie, Duchess of Hohenberg. Both died shortly after. This assassination led to a serious political crisis. Austria-Hungary blamed Serbia for the attack and issued an ultimatum. When Serbia did not fully accept the demands, Austria-Hungary declared war on July 28, 1914. This conflict quickly expanded as alliances were activated. Germany supported Austria-Hungary, while Russia backed Serbia. Soon, France and United Kingdom joined the war. The event took place on June 28, 1914, during the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand in Sarajevo, Bosnia. The man responsible was Gavrilo Princip, a young Bosnian Serb who strongly believed in Slavic nationalism. Princip was associated with a secret nationalist group known as Black Hand. This organization aimed to unite all South Slavic people, including those living under Austro-Hungarian rule, into a single nation led by Serbia. At the time, Bosnia was controlled by Austria-Hungary, which angered many Serbian nationalists who wanted independence from imperial rule. On that day, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, the heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, was visiting Sarajevo with his wife, Sophie. As their car passed through the city, Princip seized the opportunity and shot both of them at close range. The assassination shocked Europe and triggered a chain reaction of political and military decisions. Following the incident, Austria-Hungary blamed Serbia for supporting nationalist terrorism and declared war. This led to a series of alliances being activated, eventually causing the outbreak of World War I. Thus, the actions of a Serbian nationalist not only ended 2 lives but also ignited one of the deadliest conflicts in human history: the declaration of war by Austria-Hungary against Serbia on July 28. 1914 marked the beginning of a major conflict that soon expanded into World War I. This decision was largely influenced by the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand in Sarajevo on June 28, 1914. The assassin, Gavrilo Princip, was linked to nationalist groups that sought to unite Slavic peoples under Serbian leadership. Following the assassination, Austria-Hungary blamed Serbia for supporting terrorism and issued an ultimatum containing strict demands. Although Serbia accepted most of the conditions, it rejected some key points that threatened its sovereignty. This partial rejection gave Austria-Hungary a reason to declare war. The conflict quickly escalated due to alliances. Russia supported Serbia and began mobilizing its army. In response, Germany, an ally of Austria-Hungary, declared war on Russia. Soon after, Germany also declared war on France and invaded Belgium, which brought Britain into the war. Germany's declaration of war on Russia on August 1, 1914, marked a crucial turning point in the outbreak of World War I. The roots of this conflict lay in a complex crisis into a full-scale global conflict. By Germany in 1914 was a crucial event in the early stages of World War I. Germany's military strategy, known as the Schlieffen Plan, aimed to quickly defeat France by advancing through neutral Belgium, rather than attacking France directly along its heavily fortified border. On August 4, 1914, German forces crossed into Belgium, violating its neutrality, which had been guaranteed by international treaties. The Belgian army, though smaller, resisted strongly, especially at the fortified city of Liege. However, Germany's superior military strength eventually overwhelmed Belgian defenses. The invasion had significant consequences. It shocked the international community and led United Kingdom to declare war on Germany, as Britain was committed to defending Belgian neutrality. The German advance through Belgium also caused widespread destruction and civilian suffering, which became known as the Rape of Belgium in wartime propaganda. Although Germany succeeded in moving through Belgium, the resistance delayed their progress. This delay allowed French and British forces to regroup and eventually stop the German advance at the First Battle of the Marne. As a result, the war turned into a prolonged and deadly conflict instead of a quick victory for Germany. The outbreak of World War I in 1914 led to a rapid spread of war across Europe. What began as a regional conflict soon escalated into a full-scale continental war due to a complex system of alliances, rising nationalism, and militarism. After the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia. This triggered a chain reaction among European powers. Russia quickly mobilized in support of Serbia, prompting Germany to declare war on Russia. Soon after, Germany declared war on France and invaded Belgium to reach French territory. This invasion violated Belgian neutrality and led United Kingdom to enter the war against Germany. Within weeks, the conflict spread across the continent, involving most of Europe's major powers. The alliance system divided nations into two main sides, the Allies and the Central Powers. As a result, what could have remained a limited war turned into a devastating and prolonged conflict, affecting millions of lives and reshaping the future of Europe and the world. War in the Middle East began during the First World War when the Ottoman Empire joined the conflict on the side of the Central Powers in 1914. The region quickly became a major battleground involving the British Empire, Ottoman forces, and Arab nationalist groups. The British aimed to secure control over key territories such as Egypt, the Suez Canal, and Mesopotamia, which were vital for trade and communication. One of the earliest major confrontations was the Ottoman attempt to capture the Suez Canal, which was successfully defended by British and Allied forces. At the same time, fighting spread across Palestine, Syria, and Iraq. The British launched several campaigns, including the Mesopotamian campaign, where they eventually captured Baghdad in 1917. A significant development during the war was the Arab Revolt of 1916. Led by Sharif Hussein of Mecca with support from Britain, Arab forces fought against Ottoman rule, seeking independence and the creation of an Arab state. By 1918, the Ottoman Empire was weakened and losing control of its territories. The British and Allied forces captured Damascus and Jerusalem, marking the collapse of Ottoman power in the region. The war in the Middle East ended with the defeat of the Ottoman Empire, leading to major political changes and the later division of the region under European influence. In 1917, the United States entered World War I, marking a turning point in the global conflict. Until then, the war had mainly been fought between the Allied powers, such as Britain, France, and Russia, and the Central Powers, led by Germany, Austria-Hungary, and the Ottoman Empire. The United States had maintained a policy of neutrality since the war began in 1914, preferring to stay out of European conflicts. However, several key events pushed the United States toward war. One major factor was Germany's use of unrestricted submarine warfare. German U-boats began attacking merchant and passenger ships in the Atlantic Ocean, including vessels carrying American citizens. This led to growing anger in the United States, especially after incidents like the sinking of the Lusitania in 1915, which killed many civilians, including Americans. Another important factor was the Zimmermann telegram in 1917. This was a secret message from Germany to Mexico, proposing that Mexico join the war against the United States. In return, Germany promised to help Mexico regain territories such as Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona. When British intelligence intercepted and revealed this message to the US government, public opinion shifted strongly in favor of entering the war. Economic ties also played a role. The United States had strong financial and trade relationships with the Allied powers, and an Allied defeat would have severely impacted the American economy. On April 2, 1917, President Woodrow Wilson asked Congress to declare war on Germany, stating that the world must be made safe for democracy. On April 6, 1917, the United States officially entered World War I. The entry of the United States provided fresh troops, resources, and morale to the Allied powers. This support played a crucial role in weakening the Central Powers and ultimately helped bring the war to an end in 1918, as World War I progressed. Germany's strength gradually began to weaken due to a combination of military, economic, and political pressures. At the beginning of the war in 1914, Germany was one of the most powerful Central Powers, with a strong army, advanced industry, and efficient organization. However, as the war continued, the situation changed significantly. On the military front, Germany faced continuous fighting on two major fronts: the Western Front against France and Britain, and the Eastern Front against Russia. This two-front war stretched German resources and manpower. Although Russia exited the war in 1917, new challenges emerged with the entry of the United States on the Allied side, bringing fresh troops and supplies that Germany could not match. Economically, Britain's naval blockade severely restricted Germany's access to food, raw materials, and trade. As a result, shortages of food and essential goods led to hunger and declining morale among civilians and soldiers alike. Inflation and economic collapse further weakened the country. Politically, internal unrest increased. Strikes, protests, and demands for peace grew stronger, while confidence in the government declined. By 1918, Germany was exhausted, both inside and outside the battlefield. These combined factors ultimately led to its defeat and the end of the war. War has always been one of the most destructive forces in human history. It brings suffering, destruction, and the loss of millions of innocent lives. Throughout different periods of history, wars have changed the course of nations and reshaped the world. From ancient battles to modern global conflicts, human beings have experienced the devastating effects of violence and power struggles. One of the most tragic examples is the First World War and the Second World War, where millions of soldiers and civilians lost their lives. Entire cities were destroyed, economies collapsed, and families were separated forever. Diseases, famine, and displacement followed in the aftermath of war, making the suffering even worse. War does not only cause physical destruction but also leaves deep psychological scars on survivors. Children grow up without parents, and societies take decades to recover from the trauma. Even after peace treaties are signed, the effects of war continue for generations. History teaches us that war brings more loss than gain. That is why nations today try to solve conflicts through diplomacy and dialogue instead of violence. The memory of millions who died in wars reminds humanity of the importance of peace, cooperation, and understanding among all countries. On the 11th of November 1918, an armistice agreement was signed, marking the end of the fighting in World War I. This historic event took place in a railway carriage in the forest of Compiègne, France. The agreement was made between Germany and the Allied powers, including France, Britain, and the United States. It came into effect at 11 a.m., often remembered as the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. The armistice required Germany to withdraw its troops, surrender weapons, and accept defeat. This day is now commemorated worldwide as Remembrance Day or Armistice Day. The war officially ended after years of intense global conflict that had devastated nations, economies, and millions of lives. The final phase of the war was marked by exhaustion on all sides, with soldiers and civilians alike suffering from hunger, disease, and continuous violence. As military strength weakened and political pressure increased, leaders of the opposing sides began to seek peace negotiations. The decisive moment came when the Armistice of 1918 was signed, bringing an official halt to the fighting of World War I. Armistice of Compiègne 1918 was signed in a railway carriage in the forest of Compiègne, France, between Germany and the Allied powers. The agreement was reached in the early hours of the 11th of November 1918, and came into effect at 11 a.m. on the same day. When the clock struck the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, the guns finally fell silent across the Western Front. Soldiers stopped fighting, and celebrations erupted in many countries that had endured years of hardship. However, the end of the war also left behind deep scars, including destroyed cities, broken economies, and widespread grief. This moment marked the beginning of a new era in world history. As nations turned toward rebuilding and seeking lasting peace through diplomacy and international cooperation.